Hi, my name's Robin, and in this screencast, I'll be showing you how to deploy a virtualized vCenter Server Appliance onto a lab environment. So I made this screencast specifically for the Net 702 students who are unable to deploy a vCenter Server OVA file onto the Talos environment. So this shows a workaround by first installing it on your laptop and then copying it onto the Talos environment. To start following my steps, you'll need to have a couple of things set up. So in the Talos environment or the lab environment that you're going to be using, you'll need to have a Server 2006 DC with a domain and DNS working. And then on your laptop, you'll also need another Server 2016 DC that mirrors that exactly. And then you'll also, on your laptop, you'll need one ESXi host to deploy the vCenter server on. Once you have the prerequisites set up, we'll start following these steps. So first of all, we're going to make sure DNS is all working, and then we're going to make sure that the VCSA install files are available to the Server 2016 DC on the laptop. Then after that, we're going to go and we're going to deploy VCSA to the ESXi server on the laptop, and then we're going to download the deployment as a template. Once we have that downloaded, we're then going to deploy that template to the Talos environment. And then we're going to check that our deployment is working correctly. Right, so first of all, we're going to set up the DNS. So the way we do this is we're going to go Tools, DNS, and we're going to set up a reverse lookup zone to start off with. So make that primary zone. Yep. So it's a 192.168.0 network. So that's the subnet that we're running everything on here. Yep. Right, so once we've got that set up, go to forward lookup zones, my domain that I've set up. So you're going to have a domain set up already. And as you can see, I've already got my ESXi machine added in DNS. But what we want to do here is we want to add a record for the vCenter server that we're going to create. So I'll make a new host and the name. So what do we want to call our vCenter server? IP address. The IP we're going to set this up on is going to be 192.168.0.5. So it's very important that you understand what you want your machine to have, because this is going to be what you're going to set up on the actual machine. It is all changeable afterwards, so don't worry too much about it, but as long as it all matches up everywhere, then you're fine. And so we'll create an associated pointer record as well to go into the reverse lookup zone. And then we're going to add that host. So once you do that, you're also going to have to go out and you go into the Talos vSphere environment and do this exact same setup in the DNS settings of the server in the Talos environment. Right, so once we've got the DNS working, we want to get the files available for the server so that we can actually deploy the vCenter server. So the way you do this in Workstation is you go VM, Removal Devices, DVD, CD, Settings, and we're going to use an ISO file because the vCenter server installers comes in an ISO file. Right, so this is where I've got the file here. So it'll be VMware VCSA. So we click on that, open, okay. And then this brings it up in the VM. So now we've got this ready. We're going to go to the next step. So now we're going to deploy the vCenter server onto our ESXi server. So the way we do that is we'll go back to our VM and we'll go to the VCSA UI installer, Windows 32, and run the installer. Right, so we want to install a new appliance. So we're going to deploy an appliance, next, accept the license, and we want to set up one with an embedded platform services controller. Right, so this is where we've got to come to the name of the ESXi host that we're going to deploy it on. I called my ESXi machine that's on my laptop ESXi 01.robin .local. So that will find that using the DNS settings. You can also enter just the IP to the ESXi server, but as long as it can connect, that's fine. So the username for this is just root, and then I've just set up the default lab password on that. Right, so that's so it can connect to the server. Right, so now we want to name the actual VM that the vCenter server is going to be called. So as you saw earlier, I decided I wanted to call it L1 VCSA RL. Root password, we're just going to put in the default lab password. Next. The deployment size, we're just going to leave it on tiny storage on default. So it's going to be as small as possible. And we're just going to put it on the default data store on my host. Networking settings. So we'll just leave it on the VM network. Leave it on IPv4 static. We're going to call the vCenter server L1 VCSA RL. Robin.local. IP address. I set this up in the DNS as well, so it's 192.168.0.5. And then the subnet mask, default gateway. On the DNS server, so that's going to be where the DNS server resides. So that's the same on my local server as well as on my Talos environment. So these servers are exact mirrors of each other. So I'll leave those as is. And so you can see these are the settings we have. We'll finish. And then we just got to let this do its thing. It'll run through and install. Right, so after waiting for a good number of minutes, the deployment should successfully complete. So we'll go click continue. Also take note of this address here. So we'll copy this, Control-C, and then continue. We'll close that. We'll jump up here, and we'll paste this in here. And then you click Advanced, Proceed. So, next thing we need to do is we need to set up the vCenter Server Appliance. Put in the standard password. Next. We'll synchronize time with the ESXi host because that should be set up correctly. Then we'll click Next. Right, so for the SSO domain, it says vSphere.local as the default one, so I'll just set vSphere RL, so I'll put my initials at the end, .local. And the password we'll just set as the default password. The site name we'll just call Robin's Lab, and then we'll click Next. Right, we won't join the custom improvement program, so we'll just click Next, then Finish. Then we click OK, and let this do its thing. This will also take a significant amount of time. Right, so after waiting for a bit, the appliance setup will be complete. So next we'll go to the Getting Started page. So we'll just click on this link here. And then we'll go and click Advanced, Proceed. Once we get here, I'm going to choose the HTML5 because sometimes you can have issues with Flash if Flash doesn't want to run. So I'm just going to log in with the HTML5. And so here we want to log in with administrator. And here we go. So basically our vCenter server is now all fully working. So if we look back at our steps here, so what we've done now, we've got all this set up and we've deployed it. So now we need to download the deployment as a template. Right, so first of all, when we're in VMware Workstation, and we'll open up Chrome again, and we'll put in the address to our ESXi server. Right, so now if we go to virtual machines, we can see our vCenter server is running here. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut down the machine. And once that's shut down, then we right click on it again. And now we can see that our export option is now available. So you can only do this if the machine is off. You can't do this while it's on. So we'll click export and we'll say we'll download 1 out of 13. Yes. And we'll click OK. OK. and so on for every single file. Right, so once these files are finished downloading, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy them off onto my computer. So what I'm going to do is I've got a little USB stick here, so I'm going to plug it into my laptop. So you'll need a USB stick for this part of the exercise. If you don't, there's other ways. You can try and figure out another way to copy these files off the VM, or you can give this VM networking and you can just directly upload these files to vSphere as if this was my laptop. So what we're going to do is we're going to go VM, removal devices, and then we're going to attach this machine here. No, USB mass storage device. So that's the only USB storage device I've got plugged into my system. So I'm going to connect that, click OK, and we'll see this comes up here. So we're going to go into our downloads folder. So we can see all these files here. So you want to copy all of this, copy, and I would create a new folder here and call it VCSA template files. So we'll just drop that in here, paste. Right, so now that's copied across onto my USB stick. We can now disconnect it from this and it'll be now connected to my laptop. Now it's connected to my laptop. I'm going to go to my laptop and open up Chrome. So we'll go here and we'll connect to the Talos vSphere environment. And now once we're logged in, I'm just going to go right ahead, click on my resource pool and deploy an OVF template. So we'll browse local files and we'll go to the USB drive here. So in this USB drive, we've got the VCSA template files. So you just go and you select all of those files, open, and then you just click next, and you're going to click next. We're going to select our resource pool. Then we just click next. Make sure we select thin provision so it doesn't take up ridiculous amounts of space, and just select your data store for your Net 7. And then we'll just make sure the network it's connected to is in fact the production network, because that'll be what it'll be running on. Click next and finish. And then that should just start deploying. Right, so once the machine's finished deploying, we'll just power it on. Once the virtual machine's been powered on, we're going to go over to our Windows machine. So it can be either Windows 10 client or your Windows Server machine. So in this case, I'll use the client. So we'll open a console, and then we'll go and we'll point to the vCenter server. So yeah, as we can see, it's not loaded, so don't worry, it doesn't necessarily mean it's broken. It just means you've got to wait for the virtual machine to finish starting up. Right, so after letting the vCenter server start up fully, I've now got it working. So I decided to just leave it for the night, but it should take about between half an hour, I suppose, from memory. But yeah, so just make sure that you let the vCenter server start up fully before you can log in. So now we're going to just check that it all works properly. So I'm going to go into the HTML5 interface and log in. And we can see that we have a fresh vCenter server and it's all running. So now you can go and configure it and use it as you wish. To conclude the screencast, I showed you how to deploy a vCenter Server Appliance to an ESXi host. And then I showed you how to download that vCenter server as a template and then redeploy that template in another area. So in this case, we deployed it to the NMIT vSphere environment and we tested it and made sure it was working and it was successful. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this screencast and I hope you learned something from it.